Bill, wake up. There's something out there. Outside. Something was howling.
Well, my favorite horror films have an air of fantasy about them. I've never really been too fond of Mad Butcher movies or pictures about crazy knife-wielding psychos. Uh, Horror films, I think, are much more effective when they take place in a sort of a dream world. In movies are really just sort of dreams on film. And in order to really scare an audience, I think, as The Exorcist did, you have to appeal to very deep-seated fears that aren't necessarily a part of the external story.
The freedom I had on the picture was really great because I was hired by, Joe Dante and Mike Fennell, the producer and the director. And they basically let me do whatever I want to, and that's really rare in this situation because I'm only 21, and who's going to, trust a 21-year-old to pull off these big, effects in this movie that's supposed to be really good? And they came to me and showed me the script, and in the script it just says, Eddie changes into a werewolf. And I said, well, usually in scripts you have a description of what happens, and the director has a very precise idea of what is going to happen, but Joe and Mike know me. So they said, do whatever you want to do as long as it's good and spectacular. And I think that's what it is. So.
I don't see horror films normally. I really hate the gore throughout the whole of the Second World War. And I've seen more people blown to bits than I can say. I'm lucky to be alive. And I really hate things being crushed, exploded, blasted. But this film has the distinct thing, and this is what I have read in these werewolf books, is that the most terrifying thing is when you're an ordinary person and suddenly the situation or the person becomes extraordinary. That's what Hitchcock was so surprising in, and that's what makes this film so horrifying, is that the people in it are perfectly ordinary people until these startling and awful things happen. That's what I find exciting about the story.
Classic werewolf can change shape anytime it wants, day and night, whenever it takes a notion to. That's why I call them shapeshifters. I got a dozen books on it.
What about killing it with silver bullets?
Oh, sure. Silver bullets are fire. It's the only way to get rid of the damn things. They're worse than cockroaches. They come back from the dead if you don't kill them right. Plus, they regenerate. You know what that is? Cut off an arm, cut off a leg, stick a knife in their heart, nothing. They may look dead, but bam, 3 days later, they're as good as new.
The whole thing about the Avengers was that we used to look at it slightly tilted, and Joe Dante's done that with this film. The whole of life is slightly tilted. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know when the nuclear bomb is going off. We don't know whether our people will suddenly have dreadful operations, whether people will suddenly get run over. There are always these fears. It plays on those sort of fears as well. And then suddenly you laugh out of relief.
If you don't give the audience something to laugh at in a picture like this, chances are they'll find it in the wrong place. And some of my favorite films, some of my favorite horror films, like The Bride of Frankenstein and Invisible Man, are pictures which combine comedy and horror in they juxtapose them in a way that makes the horror a lot more effective, because once the audience has laughed, they're a little off balance, they're a little more relaxed, and then you can sort of hit them.
When we started the picture, we didn't want to, because it's now 1980 and this the old techniques of transforming somebody into something they're not supposed to be. Used to be a technique called the lap dissolve, which they would like pin down, Lon Chaney Jr.'s ears, and they'd say, okay, hold still, and they'd come and they'd glue hair on his face, and then they'd take a picture of it, and then they'd come in and glue a little more, and then they'd start putting on a nose, and they'd dissolve all those pictures together. What you end up with is a very undramatic transformation, but really neat for those days, because it was a miracle they even did that, and it was done very slick. But today, to make this picture different, we had to not use camera tricks, and when we shot the actual werewolf transformation through a series of mechanical effects, the actor Bob Picardo, who plays Eddie Quist in the most elaborate transformation in the film, actually changes into a dog, 9-feet-tall dog, before your very eyes, without camera tricks. His bones start breaking and his chest starts bursting open, his nose on his face starts cracking and twisting and going forward. His teeth start growing, his eyes start changing color, his neck bloats up like a bullfrog. His ears start stretching, his neck starts stretching and his legs start going. He grows fingernails on camera. And he basically changes into this huge monster, which I think is pretty unique.
There was a lot of concern when we started out making this film, since this is, for instance, the first werewolf film, the first film made about werewolves in the past 20 years, really, that the acting and the quality of the characters would become subordinated to the special effects. All too frequently in a film like this, the special effects become the movie. And the real test of a good horror film or a monster film, I think, is to how good is it when the monster isn't on screen?
I play a civilized man in this civilized, what am I saying? I play a psychiatrist. But anyway, one of those phony psychiatrists that are on television, and I take her up because I want to see her nude in a tub. A lot of nudity in this film, which is really great fun. And they sit around in my place, sort of Estlin-like type place, you know, and they all turn into werewolves. Well, that's a bad thing to happen to you anyway.
Since the advent of the rating system, the movies have generally become more graphic. It's partly to compete with television. It's partly because you can't do what's already been done and expect people to find it exciting. In some films, it seems to have taken a somewhat morbid turn. There are a lot of films that are extremely graphically violent. We tried to make the film exciting in the old-fashioned sense without making it gratuitously revolting.
I saw this film in New York, and I was terrified. Then suddenly it's very funny, and then it's human. I think it's way, way above what you call a horror film. And of course, Bertine's work is something quite extraordinary. I never want to see the film again, because the first time was so extraordinarily exciting. I haven't had anything like it in the cinema for a long time.
Hello?